All right, I'm here with Eileen Durfee. Welcome to the show, Eileen.
Well, thanks for having me, Joe. It was a pleasure actually meeting you up there in Boise.
Yeah. What a treat. Just before jumping on, we were just talking, and I was just saying, man, it's been great. I've been following you for a while now. Just since you're such an eclectic health. I don't want to say pioneer. Well, I mean, you are a pioneer, but I was gonna really just say advocate, champion for health in so many ways. But I've been following you since you've been talking about saunas and enemas and all this stuff. And now we've got a chance to meet. You've got some new products out there dealing with spinal fitness, which we're going to get into today. But yeah, it's just a real treat to just see all the cool things that you're coming up with and inventing, and it's really nice. And now here we are, connecting again, and we get to share this with the world. So thank you.
Yeah. Well, my passion is spinal fitness because, when I was born, they ripped me out with forceps. My par- my parents didn't know, but as I grew, my hips were twisted. It wasn't that my leg bones were shorter on one side than the other, but when you got that fascia, that poor muscle memory and injury, you've got dysfunction. And so whenever I would walk or run as a young child, my right knee would hit my left knee. And so I was very awkward. My hips were twisted in such a way that my right leg was like an inch shorter than the other one. And so their answer, even though, I'd be crying at night with pain, was to put me in special shoes. And
I wore cast, Eileen. They put me in on cast because they said I was pigeon toed. My brother had the same thing.
yeah,
This
and
is fascinating.
Yeah, and so now it's like with my grandchildren, we take them to the chiropractor, we get them, the structure starting off in a good place. And so that just, magnified my pain. Eventually my parents took me to a chiropractor who just put a lift in my shoe, and then I grew 9 inches in 3 months. I'm 6 foot tall, and that was just painful beyond words. And then I was walking in a grocery store parking lot, and this lady was blinded by the sun, and she just plowed right into me, and I flew up on the hood, and it's like my thoracics just went like crazy out, and every breath I took was just like stabbing daggers. I couldn't lift my arms, and went to all the doctors and the neurologist, and they're just saying, oh, you're just not going to be able to have the range of motion to lift your arms up. And this 93-year-old chiropractor, Leon Inch, said, well, I know this young chiropractor that's really into exercise, and that's what you need exercise to strengthen and to get these curves. So I met a man called Dr. Scherger, John Scherger, and he had these exercises, and I was getting adjusted like almost every day initially after the accident. And he pretty much rehabilitated me, and I was so excited. And I taught exercise classes for him. I almost went to school to become a chiropractor. Then I got sidetracked with nuclear power plant engineering and all that kind of stuff that paid so much money. But it always stayed with me, and I stayed friends with him. And over the years, he started working with the US Olympic team in the 1980s and 90s, and worked with Bob Beaton and Jennifer Stone. And then he also worked with Ron O'Neal at the New England Patriots, up until he died. Dr. Sugar passed in like 2006. And it was just interesting. They also work with Smitty, who was an Olympic, legendary Olympic weightlifting trainer, who worked for York Barbell for like 50 years. And so, what this team of people did, because it had never been done before, is analyzing the compression and shear forces on every joint in the human vertebrae through motion. And so they developed certain exercises to be able to come up with ideal posture. Now, if anybody's out there and purchased like a human spine, and everything like that. I bought one and I was like mathematically trying to manipulate it to have perfect posture. And people don't even know what perfect posture is mathematically to withstand the forces of gravity. And so Dr. Sugar, it was first written about by Leonardo da Vinci, and then Borelli in the 1680s, and then Burl Pettibon, who came up with the Pettibon system of chiropractic care, where instead of just adjusting and relieving joint pressure, it was like, okay, the reason why our vertebrae are going out is because we have loss of curve, and then the shear force is reversed. So then they give exercises, corrective exercises to try to bring that curve back. Well, Dr. Sugar took it another step further and developed, something like if you're going to move a big boulder, for instance, and you have a long lever, you need like a block. You put a block underneath there to get some force to be able to be stronger to move it. So Dr. Sugar got the idea because he used to do jibbing and craning because he was an iron worker before. So he started thinking of this lever arm and forces and the human spine. So they mathematically determined the force that you have to apply on top of the body and then a movement to induce the curvature and to shear back, the vertebrae in proper location. Now, most people don't know. I'm going to grab the spine real quick. Hold on just a sec.
So Eileen, I'm this is fascinating. I'm just kind of listening to you talk and just taking it all in. You're actually saying that, in order to change the spine and actually make it that S shape, I think is what you're saying is good for us. We actually need to apply some shear force. There needs to be some force, but it just needs to be in the proper amount, it sounds like. Is that
And
right?
location.
And location. Okay.
Yeah. So, like, there's these bones on here. These are facet bones right here. And if you have this S-shaped curve, the shear forces of gravity push on the spine back to where those bones lock on each other, which requires no muscle effort at all. It's just like strong, like a vice. But if you have forward head posture because you're, texting, you're sitting at your computer, then these facet bones don't lock on each other. And the forces, instead of pushing this way, bone on bone, they push this way. And then you can have dislocation because your ligaments and then the multifidus and the interspinalis muscles fatigue, because we're not doing exercises to strengthen those. Actually, gravity, life, regular sit-ups actually stress those. They're not strengthening them. And so we have to realize that if we had the right S-shape curve, I guess the thing is, that we could almost balance it in gravity without much weight. But if you've got this, to hold this up, you have so much, and they calculated how much weight that is and what it does to the hamstrings. And so basically, to get the mechanical advantage, we need that S-shaped curve. And you talk to physical therapists, and it's like, how do you induce the right curvature?
Yeah.
They don't know of a way. And so what we do is we put the spine in a position if it already had good posture. That's like the fulcrum that I talked about, the rock. You got that rock that you're trying to move with the lever. So the spine is the lever. So we strategically put a fulcrum, we'll call it, like a block, underneath the spine. Then we put weight, like in this case for the sit-up, we put weight on the chest, but like a pelvic tilt, we put it right here on the iliac to where then your body is going like this and then it shear, it's exercising it in a way that you're not used to, because a normal sit-up is like, let's destroy the curve,
Right.
let's not.
So no good. Don't do sit-ups. Sit-ups not a good.
No, so we have a power cushion, it's called, that has a groove, so it's kind of like keeping the train on the train track. It's similar to this cushion here. Everybody knows what a foam roller is. And this is different than the yoga rolls, the plexus wheel, the chirp wheel. Those have very little cushioning material on it. And the groove isn't deep enough because it will hit that solid surface to where it crunches the spinous instead of allowing it to float. And then the transverse process part of the vertebrae catches on the edges, see? And then, so in the power cushion, it has that specialized groove. And then by putting weight on the body, it's inducing a certain curvature, a certain motion. And what they found with NFL players, for instance, is that the common injury is L4, L5. And so when you do the pelvic tilt, it reverses the shear. And even if you have a herniated disc, because the disc is, attached to one of the bones that are out of place. And so when you do the shear forces with the pelvic tilt and put the force on top of your body with the right fulcrum underneath it, it shears it back into place. Like Luke Rockhold, L4, L5 injury. Joe Rogan wanted him to go get surgery. He didn't. I gave him a power cushion. He's been doing it. He's fighting July 2nd. I mean, if you would have looked at his post, just his story yesterday, he says, hips don't lie. I mean, that guy is recovered. And it's just math.
And that's Eileen. That's all he's done is just using some of your spinal fitness regime that you've designed. That's it. That's like
Well,
the
yeah,
only thing
yeah, yep.
yeah.
He's
Wow.
basically using, the neck shaper, doing the sit up and the pelvic tilt over the power cushion. And yeah, and so it's given him the mechanical advantage. And so that's what they found with the NFL players, is they could shear that back, or like as the season progressed and they were fatigued from injuries, they could like regularly do these pelvic tilts to reverse that shear force and get it back in there. And then the other one is the sit up, where you're arching over and you're putting weight like on your chest and you're sitting up. And so you're going to get your external obliques and you're going to do stuff, but your low back is in a protected area and it actually encourages curvature. And then we have the neck flexion, because, the neck, a lot of people, like that reminder. Oh my gosh, I just have to laugh when I see those ads for that reminder that buzzes when you're, hunched over. And, I just used to have the most roundest shoulders, but after doing the spinal fitness exercises, it has induced my curvature. But a reminder for me is it's really the position of your head over your hips that determines the shoulders. And so when I do the neck shaper, I just look up, and the thing of it is you don't do anything to the point of pain. Some people, they can only look up like this. They can't look up like that. And when you're like nodding, I'm agreeing with you, that's C5 in your neck. So when you're nodding at somebody, you're not pushing your head forward or anything like this. So this simple exercise is just nodding.
Yeah.
To do it right, you go up and it's just chin down like you're nodding, but you're putting a little pressure on. And then when your chin is down, then you relax, just relaxing, and then you're pushing back. And when you push back, your low back curve increases, and then your head is over your pelvis. And what's interesting is like, see how my shoulders went back? It's not having the sheer willpower to stand up straight. It's like, let's do something that really strengthens the multifidus and the interspinalis and give you that support under your body and the force on top to actually induce a curvature. And so, from the time kids are in grade school, they're destroying their ability to gain the curvature. Because when you're born, you're a C shape, and it literally takes 18 years to develop the density and the ossification of your vertebrae, but also the shape. And so there's a lot of early sports development and things like that that are harming children. And then, look, back pain in America is $100 billion a year problem just for the low back. And then people are getting surgeries and, all that kind of thing. And so Dr. Sugar used to say that, you brush and floss the teeth you want to keep. So if you want to keep or get, because most people do not get that good curvature, is to just do your daily spinal fitness exercises, which is a neck flexion, the right kind of sit up, and a pelvic tilt. And it's like, you don't have to do much. Like initially, you might only do 5 or 6 reps of this.
So I was going to ask you, yeah, you've got a couple of things, and I think you've mentioned three different things. We've got the spinal. I mean, I'm sorry. We're going to do this. The I mean, is that the way you look at it? Actually, cervical, thoracic, lumbar. Hit all
Yeah.
those three areas.
Yeah.
So hit those three. Okay. So let's, if it's me we're talking about, and I'm the average person too, right? We were talking just beforehand, like, hey, how much have you gotten a chance to use the product? Not that much, because the first week I was really good, and then I got into bad habits and stopped doing it. So minimum effective dose. I'm curious. Someone gets these things, like, what are like the things I need to be doing, like minimum effective dose, and then like how long, how many reps, and when do you? And then my next question will be like, when do you kind of start seeing change? When do people start telling you, oh my god, I feel so much better? Or,
Right. Well, what I say is initially just 5 minutes a day. I mean, literally, how long does it take to do 6 reps? Not very many. And then,
so
work.
just once a day, even if you just did it once a day with the cervical.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
And then what we do have to stretch the vertebrae in your back and get more nerve impulses going is the backtrack. And we have it in 2 different densities. And then another thing that's phenomenally effective is putting the body in a state where your muscles relax. See, a lot of people are into stretching, which I'm an advocate of stretching. But when you've got somebody with chronic tight muscles, tight hamstrings, it's almost like refusing to pull the nail out of a tire and carrying around a compressed air can, all the stretching, because you cannot change the attachment points of muscle to bone. So, why are the muscles tight? The bones are in the wrong location or shape. I mean, I haven't seen one person with the ideal S curvature in years, like probably in 30 years.
And these are even, you're talking about the professional athletes that you work with as well in the NFL and the MMA and the UFC. You're saying
Yeah,
all these people. Okay,
yeah,
great.
yeah. I mean, Luke Rockhold is the closest thing that I've seen. He's got a 375 curve on that low back. His weakness is he's got forward head posture. Of course, fighters, they're arched over, they're protecting themselves. So it's just like eating candy before bed and refusing to floss and brush. That's why the spinal fitness is so important for them to do that, to get it. And I just met him uh, Tuesday. And I was in there and I was checking his shoulders, and it's like such a dramatic improvement. Because, if your brain tells you to get your right hand up and, you're going to punch, but if you have nerve impingement, that body reflex is going to be slower. See? So, that was his weakness, was, the forward head posture, which actually affects the low back too. So it's like a whole organism. And so, We need to get the shape, and that's what's not being taught. Like I said earlier, when we were talking before the show, a lot of these functional patterns are getting people out of pain, and they're getting them into a more straight spine.
Neutral spine, right? We hear that a lot. I mean,
And
there's
that's
people.
that's not athletically the best. See, when you've got the shapes and it's all balanced over, your hamstrings are totally loose, 0 pounds of effort. But if you're just 2 inches this way, 2 inches is that way, it's 843 pounds of strength on the hamstrings. So, what are hamstrings for? They're for locomotion. So, that means your body constantly, whenever you have tight muscles, it's a protective mechanism. It's, hey, don't drift any farther out of position because then that pinches nerves. Look at every nerve coming from our brain stems. So if we have tight muscles, it's trying to protect nerve impulses to our organs, and so that's protective. So when you're going to run, if you've got a structure issue and you have tight hamstrings, you don't get that for fast muscle twitch recruitment. It will save that. So what does that do? Your stride is shorter. Your speed is less. You can't jump as high. And so I meet all these athletes. We met. I had you feel your hamstrings. We had you bend over. We had you put your arms up. A lot of people have, their arms forward. That tells me about their neck, how they lead with their eyes. I mean, I can tell their weakness just by a few evaluations. And then we go through one set of exercises. I had one guy gain 11 inches in reach. He was like just reaching his fingertips just below his knees, and he could touch the ground after 5 minutes. Or people will be pretty good in their low back and then maybe not be able to turn their head very far. But every single person is like, wow. I was with UFC fighter Cheeto. He couldn't touch his fingertips to the ground. There's a video on my Instagram where I'm putting the pressure on his iliac bones and he's doing the pelvic tilt. Then afterwards, he can touch. He can't be hands down, but he's like this, where before he was like this. And that's significant, for flexibility and athletic performance. And people don't realize, I mean, I'm going to be 60 years old in May, but if you took an x-ray of my spine, I don't have a lot of edges wore off. I don't have a lot of deteriorated discs because I've been practicing these exercises and getting, I go to the chiropractor every 2 weeks, and I just, have taken care of my body. But it's like a bent crankshaft in a motor. You're going to have extra heat, you're going to have wear and tear, you're just not going to have the energy. How many people, when they have had a back pain or an episode, it's like a massive amount of energy that the body consumes, keeping your body erect in gravity.
Yep.
And
Great point. And I mean, I think one of the great things you said earlier too was, that hinting on the fact that, if things are tight, your body, you may not notice it and feel it, but your body is in a state of fight or flight constantly. And so stress levels go up and all these other things. And then if your body's always in fight or flight, because of this tenseness, man, it's going to be tough. The nervous system is on overload and it's going to be tough to recover. It's going to be tough to do all the other things that you're talking about, right?
right. So yeah, it's progressive. One of the neat things that people could do now, and I have PDF guides on my website for free for download, and it explains how to do all these exercises. I've got anatomical pictures, step by step. But before we get the power cushion, they can duct tape up a sleeping bag. See, the exercise ball is the wrong arc. So you can't get the posterior support with, putting force on your body on top. to do the exercises to get any change. But you can roll up a sleeping bag and tape it for now. Yeah, it's not going to have the density like this foam does to really shift and move your bones, but it's going to get you doing a sit up differently. You can put some weight on your chest with a plate, and do some sit-ups. You can do a pelvic tilt by having a partner put their palms and putting some resistance on that hip bone. I mean, we have a post where we were together and some other posts on Instagram that kind of gives a visual for that. But one of the key things are these rolls. you know
Yep.
they
I've got a couple of them right here
yeah,
that you gave me.
yeah, they
Yeah.
they come in 5 different diameters for the low back, 5 different diameters for the neck, and they come in 3 different densities. And that's because everybody's different. The blue is soft, the orange is medium, and the red is hard. And when you do this back twist, we call it, you just sit up straight, chin up, arms out, you lead with the eyes, and you're looking and you're twisting, keeping your column straight. See, your discs are like the consistency of a sponge. But when you do that twist, blood flow, nourishment goes, and that disc turns to like a soft gel. It becomes pliable. And so when you lay down over properly sized rolls, you can see there's the groove for the low back, there's the groove for the neck bone, and you put them underneath your body. I've got a guide that tells you where. There's actually a video on how to do it. You just put it 1 inch above, when you're laying down, you're going to put that low back one about right there, 1 inch above your iliac. And then you're going to feel the curve of your neck, so the back of your head hits the ground. And so if you have a flat back, you're going to need a small diameter cushion. Then if you have a real big curve, you're going to need a bigger diameter cushion. And if you're injured, you're going to need softer. Or if you have any pain in your back, you're going to need softer. But it's crazy. You do the twists and you lay over this for 20 minutes. And in that process, remember how I talked about the tight muscles? You can't change the attachment point to the bone. And it's tight because it's protecting you in gravity because your shape is not ideal. So you lay over this, there's no gravity anymore. Literally, you will hear your bones pop when you're just laying over these cushions. And then after 20 minutes, the disc that was a gel, so it's being moldable, it actually firms back up to the consistency of a sponge. So then you're able to roll off and get off of there, and you feel your body's like going back to the better posture. It's building that memory for it. And it's amazing. I had a neighboring business next door, and the man's son, he was about 12 years old. He was jumping on a trampoline and he fell off and damaged his neck. And he'd been having seizures and he had been through all the physical therapy, everything, nothing would help him. And so I sized him with some ugly prototype cushions at that time and taught him how to do it. And he laid over it, and his dad called me about a month later and he says, my son takes those with him everywhere in his backpack, and he is faithful. He does them every day, and he's never had a seizure since.
Wow.
I mean, it's so corrective. It feels so good. People with headaches because of their neck tension. I mean, this is just like crazy. And so because of there being so many different back postures, stature, heights, everything comes into play in it. We came up with a sizing kit. So we have the different diameters and a few different densities. I didn't do a density in every diameter, but you can lay down over these and get an idea. Was the back of my head touching? So you can order the size to get started with. And then because we all need that ideal curvature, and basically we just have loss of curvature. We're too much at our computers, on our phones. It just gravity is taking its toll.
Yeah. Eileen, on that note, I'm curious. I remember hearing something saying that if you're like a degree off or something, maybe it's a little bit more, but like if you're a degree off in that forward posture that all of us are in, that kyphosis, right? That
Right.
forward step. If it's like just a degree or two, like the difference in the amount of force, it's like 60 pounds or something of gravity, like going that direction.
Oh
And
yeah.
I don't know if is that the number or what, but
I've
it,
got
you
a
just imagine over and over again, if you're daily walking in that position, then man, you're going to have some damage over 20, 30 years. And then we wake up and we're like, man, why does my back hurt? Or why does my neck hurt? Right. It's like,
yeah. Yeah, it's incredible. I in my PDF guides, it shows, neutral posture, which in my mind is the S-shaped curve where everything's balanced over. You have minimal muscles firing versus military straight versus forward head posture. And it evaluates because you not only have tightness of muscle, but the compression forces change as well. So my documents tell you both based on posture. Like I gave the example of 843 pounds of the hamstrings effort if you're 2 inches at the waist and 2 inches looking down. There's all kinds of other ones as far as the shear and the compression in the knees. I mean, how many knee replacements are we having? And the hips and just, the neck muscles. But yeah, it goes from like I think 32 pounds to like in some cases like 170 pounds. I mean, it's huge. It's like if you just took a broom handle and it was straight up and you balanced it, no effort, but tilt it 2 inches and your hand can't hold it. Borelli did the analysis of a stevedore, just a person with a 100-pound bag over their shoulder, and he did the mathematical calculation for all the shear forces and the weight on the body, and it was over 15,000 pounds that was translated into the joints of the structure of the human anatomy. And that just takes its toll, and it causes people to become injured, because there's a lot of training out there about building muscles. And so Dr. Sugar used to say body muscle overload training, does not make a strong joint. And there's an analysis, a lot of weightlifters will do the leg extension and the leg curl. And Dr. Sugar did the mathematical analysis. I mean, it went to Cornell University even. And when Dr. Sugar worked with the New England Patriots, the New York Giants, the Jets, and the Dallas Cowboys, he told them, don't do those exercises anymore. And he showed, because the ACL ligament can only stretch a certain amount. And when you do those exercises, it puts it in an unprotected state where it overstresses it. And in the documents that I wrote, I laid out and I quote some of his research to show exercises we recommend and the ones to avoid. And then also an evaluation. Dr. Sugar used to help the New England Patriot pick who to draft. And so if you look historically, in the 2000s and the late 1990s, they didn't spend very much and they got a lot of good athletes, because you can have somebody who has tremendous talent, tremendous stats, but then you can see their neck and then you can see some things and they're set up for injury, versus somebody who has a good curvature, or that can be trained and polished, that'll be less likely to be injured, that can be a superior player. Spinal fitness is all about designing the mechanical advantage to be a superior athlete. And we can take anybody and give them that curvature over time. It's just like going out and taking and having some sun. Pretty soon your body's going to adapt and you're going to get a tan. Same thing with the spine. So you start off really slow, like 5 minutes a day, and you might only do 5, 10 reps, never to the point of pain. And then you continue doing that like 3 to 5 times a week. And then eventually where you work up where you can do 100 reps, then you're adding more weight. And, but it'll pay off because those tight muscles that you're stretching forever to get rid of, will instantly be better. And then as you do it, the memory and the multifidus and their spinalis get strengthened and the shear forces, you're just going to start feeling more energetic. You're going to feel lighter, taller, faster, less pain. You're going to be sleeping better, you know.
Yeah, I want to ask you a question about sleep, but real quick, I'm thinking about a couple clients that I work with that have two clients in particular. One with a neck fusion actually,
Mhm.
and I'm wondering, one of the things I keyed up on that you said was that it's you know, they need to be strengthened. These neck. I'm always thinking of people with tight necks, but you're actually saying no. We need to strengthen these muscles. So I'm curious, like people like that with these neck fusions and they've had bone scarring and issues like that, have you seen success, or would that be even a good protocol for them to maintain to strengthen that cervical?
So when they've had a fusion, you have to be really careful about using this because once it's fused, those bones are immovable. But laying over the cushions, and gently, doing some stuff that doesn't cause pain, then the other bones are going to become more flexible and the body can adapt to a better curvature and gravity to where they don't have as many tight muscles. This, there's a guy who is scheduled for neck surgery. 10 years of just chronic neck pain therapy, everything couldn't break it. He had this for 2 weeks. And he started off just 6 times a day, just a few. Like, if you're at your desk or if you get up, go to the bathroom or get up, drink water, just do a few. He didn't do anything else. He did those. And in 2 weeks, his pain was gone and canceled his surgery. Because it's shape. It is your shape, and you can get your shape back.
I love that. I love that. You know what it reminds me of too is when I interviewed Dr. John Jaquish, who was talking about weightlifting is a waste of time and how the proper way to build strength and muscle. But he was describing kind of what you're saying, like our bones, that's our chassis. And so if you can build the chassis and make it stronger, well, then guess what? You can put more load on that chassis. You can put more muscle on that chassis because that at its root is stronger. So it's really cool. What kind of ties in with what you're saying. I'm wondering too, I have another client I'm thinking about who has like a facet joint issue in the lower lumbar. Have you had any like success with that? Or like, I think it's his facet joint's like out, but I would imagine doing just like the daily lying down, like that you showed me, putting one under the hip, the other one on
Huge.
the neck.
Huge. And then gently doing the backtrack. We have two different densities. Like we have the hard and we have the soft. So I'd recommend starting with the soft. Like I had a bicycle mishap, and when I was jumping off trying to avoid an accident, I slammed into the guardrail with my ribs, and I had been to the chiropractor, craniosacral, still was in pain, and my prototype came and I rolled on this thing and my rib went in place, and it was just like, oh, all of a sudden I can raise my arm again instead of like chronic pain, can't even brush my hair. And so because you can roll clear down in the low back and clear up, to the base of your neck with this, that would be really, really good for him. But, gradually increasing the diameter of these. That's what you have to do is you have to buy ones that you're comfortable laying over and then ones that you have to bend your knees to be comfortable in the low back. But this laying over this with the muscles relaxed, bones drift. I mean, I mean, I'm having Major League Baseball players, UFC fighters, NFL players laying over these, and they're going, wow, and we're hearing their bones snap because their tight muscles are letting go and they're drifting. And so then, for now, using the guide to tape up a sleeping bag to start arching over that, in short order, that curvature, because those facets are supposed to lock on each other, the upper and the lower. And when you have lots of curves, see how it can twist? But if you had the proper curvature, it's actually impossible for it to go out of alignment. See how great having the S-shaped curve makes you? You're less susceptible to injury. Besides, your muscles aren't tight until you recruit them.
Amazing stuff. Okay, so I know we're running up close to the top of the hour, so I want to just make sure people that are, I mean, this makes perfect sense to me. I love it, and it's just simple, really, too. And I'm listening to you talk, and I'm gonna go on, the next 30 days and make a commitment to be doing this every day, or at least at least a couple of times a week. At least the next exercises. That's easy. So I think a good recipe for anybody that's just starting and that's listening to this episode, doing just the neck exercises 6 times a day, and then even to 20 minutes of just laying down, right? If they did just those two things, I mean, we would see some huge improvements, not even adding the pelvic tilt or even the thoracic tilts, right? I
Oh,
think,
yeah. Yeah,
yeah. Okay.
absolutely. I
So that's what I'm
mean,
going to start doing.
anybody who's at their desk and they have any pain going through their arm or tightness or low back thing, everything is going to get better just by doing those.
Have you, yeah, I mean, just thinking about that, what you just mentioned, have you seen anybody like with thoracic outlet or just any like nerve pain? Or we hear a lot about the carpal tunnel, right? Or like the
It's
nerve going down, right? Which we know like catches into the scalenes and comes all the way down. Have you had any just by doing, I mean, you have already these great testimonials, but now I'm just thinking,
Yeah,
um,
all that
yeah.
is really the neck curvature, from your brain stem, every nerve comes out between your vertebrae. And even if that vertebrae isn't totally out, but because of the shape, the nerve canal is less, think about it. You're getting impingement, you're getting less flow, less energy, which causes pain. And it's like I have an old shoulder injury, from debarking logs, building a cabin, and so that happened like in 2000. So, I fight that, when I'm weightlifting and doing different things with my shoulder. My shoulder was bothering me again, and I took like a harder, bigger neck cushion, and I was laying on my workbench, and I had the neck shaper clamped onto actually an ordinary barbell, and I've got like 30 pounds on there, and I'm doing the neck flexion. Actually, the video is on my Instagram. It has music, so you don't hear the cracking every time the crack, 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 crack. Then I get up and my shoulder problem is gone. It was really my neck so it's like everything I believe really starts with the spine for most people. And so just treating a wrist, could really be related, a high probability, to your spine.
Shoulder, neck. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And then I wanted to ask you just real quickly about sleep. Have you, it makes total sense that if you're going to do something like the lying down the 20 minutes lying down with the lumbar and then the cervical, that, we know that there's this nice recovery time that the brain goes through the lymphatic system, washing away those plaques at night when we're sleeping. So I'm curious if you've heard or reported of just anybody, improve deep sleep or sleep scores because they've been, they've used that 20-minute protocol, which I think is already a nice parasympathetic, method into getting into rest and relax state. But yeah, have you heard anything about people's deep sleep improving? I'm curious.
Yes, and what it does is, we have actually our spinal fluid has a rhythm. And when we've got impingement, either from tight fascia or bones being out of place or what have you, that cerebral spinal fluid that washes down the brain, that works through that, is stagnated. And so when you lay on these and your bones are drifting, you feel them and releasing, you will generally feel more energy flowing in your body, and the cerebral spinal fluid begins washing and circulating. And that definitely impacts the body and improves the sleep.
Okay, cool. Well, let's do some lightning round questions, if you don't mind.
Sure, go ahead.
I'm curious, if the old you could see the new you, what would the new you say?
Life did not need to be so difficult. I could have enjoyed the journey. See, when I was younger, I didn't enjoy the journey. I was very ill, sick, stressed out. I don't have the skills. I didn't have the skills that I have now. And so, yeah, could have been a lot more present.
Love that. I'm curious, what are some choices that you think you made that made you who you are today?
I had this, I don't know, it was just part of me to continue believing that if my body just had what it needed, that I could be healthy and whole and feel good and be happy, because doctors and medication and constant pain, when I was younger, allergic to everything and all the different, I mean, I had psoriasis all over my body. My hair was falling out. I couldn't think. I mean, I had like, it was easier to say what was working than what wasn't. And so now at, you know, 60 years old next month, no pain in my body, sleeping well, waking up with energy, happy, just clarity. I mean, if you look at videos from me 10 years ago, you're like, wow, I'm getting younger. And that's what I'm doing, is getting biologically younger and, using time to harness the wisdom, always learning.
Yeah, people that don't know you, I just want to say acknowledge you. Like you're really an inventor. I mean, if you anybody goes to your website, I mean, there's just so many things you're doing, and when we got to chat in person about a month ago or so, I mean, I was just blown away at like you're doing the spinal fitness thing, but you've got so many other projects too that you're working on. It's just really inspiring to see just all the good that you're out there working towards, and like it's just I could just see your brain working. It's like it's never gonna stop. And like
No,
we're
it's like that's my joy. I mean, there's a lot of inventors in my family. Actually, we're related to the Wright brothers, and my dad has invented stuff. My uncles, cousins have invented things, and it's kind of like I've always been interested in gizmos and gadgets, so I just buy all of them and try them. And then it's like I think, man, I wish it was like this, and then I just go to sleep and I see it. I mean, because, my mind's, I know how to draw an AutoCAD, and, I just engineering, and then it's like I'm like building things, trying them, tweaking them. But I also have lucid dreams. I hear things. So it's like I'm getting help. And so it's just a flow. And yeah, it just seems like it never stops. I've just had, when I was in Hollywood on a trip, I came up with 2 new inventions. Actually, I'm doing patent searches right now on those. And, I have I have 10 patents in the United States, 7 utility, 3 design patents. There's 2 more I'm going to file just on spinal fitness. And then there's another 2 that I'm working on that are unrelated. But I mean, I've been issued a utility patent on something that's going to disrupt a whole industry, and I haven't even made it yet. I mean, I did on my 3D printer, but not, functional. So yeah, that's the joy. I'm actually finally getting to do what I was created to do.
100% you are. I'm curious, you're such a force in the wellness world. Who inspires you? Is there anybody that you follow or that inspires you?
um, well, I constantly read, and search, and everything. And it's like, I'm not afraid to let go of a previous belief that is outdated, and so I would never make something or recommend something, even if I could make money, if it wasn't the very best, the very safest, and everything like that. So it's been an evolution. And so, all the biohacking, all the different things, all the different diets, and just all the studies, of research, and then I've got all these I have clients in 91 countries. And so it's like everybody, seems to think I'm the expert on everything, and they ask me questions. It's like, I have no idea. So then I'll like read for hours, and it's like, oh wow, I'm glad I learned that, And so that's kind of, it's just like every day for hours when I get up, when I'm multitasking, when I'm in my sauna, when I'm in the hyperbaric oxygen chamber, because I have one of those at home, But so it's like I'm also implementing and trying things, being my own guinea pig, and then measuring with laboratory testing, the effects, and just trying to be able to help people because, I was sick for so long. I mean, my passion is people shouldn't have to suffer. I mean, I'd rather pray for them and have them supernaturally be healed, but until then, it's just learning.
Yeah. So my next question, this is perfect. I was gonna, and maybe you won't be able to answer because you have so many, but I always like to ask. I'm a big reader too. Are there like 1 to 3 books that just stand out for you that had a huge impact in your life that you would recommend other people read?
Oh, number one book would be Your Body's Many Cries for Water. And because 80% of people are dehydrated, and I believe that 80% of disease is caused by not being properly hydrated. I
Funny too, because right before we got on, I texted you. I said, "Hey, I'm getting a cup of coffee," and you said, "Good, I'm getting water."
Yeah, water with my healthy salt that's 20% minerals, 11.72 pH with a negative charge, so it's like expanding easy exclusion zone water in my body. But that is like the number one book because
That's fascinating. I've never had anybody mention that. That's so cool. I'm gonna have to check that one out.
yeah, it's Dr. Batman, and I have no idea how to pronounce his last name. I know I butcher it, every time. And then boy, that's been the most impactful. The Easy Water book, from Dr. Gerald Pollack is wonderful as well. It kind of relates to that as far as energy and things like that. But there's so many books, but there is one that I really recommend to all my clients because whenever you start a protocol, everybody's different. Like, for instance, how much healthy salt do I take? The recommended dose is 3 little scoops, but some people have to start out with what balances on a toothpick, literally, because of the power and the detoxification. So I recommend every client get the book and at least read one chapter. It's called The Emotion Code by Dr. Bradley Nelson.
I just interviewed him a couple interviews ago. The book's behind me.
Yeah,
Amazing book. I love that you said that. Couldn't agree
because
more.
the because your body knows, and if you can figure out the method to do the energy testing, like my mom was really good at the sway, where I'm really good at using a pendant. But each person, but he has the chapter that is the absolute best way that I've heard anybody explain it to train people how to do that. Because a lot of times it's the combination of things that you're taking, or at a particular time it's better to take, besides the whole emotion thing, to, deal with. And so that would be the other book. So it's really the your body's many cries for water, the emotion code, and I'm trying to think of a third
Oh,
one.
you don't need a third one. I just was if there was I just say 1 to 3 because for some people they're like, oh, I could give you 10. I'm like, no, that's too many. Just 1 to 3 tops. No, those are great. Those are amazing. I love that. Last two questions, we'll wrap it up. I'm curious, especially you being a biohacker and you got the sauna and the ozone and everything. And what are just some rituals or hacks that you do on a regular basis? Any practices or anything like that
Yeah,
you do?
yeah. Well, I try to get morning sunlight and grounding and hydration, first thing, drink some spring water. And, I'm really big into the surface tension of the water, creating, the hydration with the minerals. And then drinking ozonated water and then taking, a near infrared sauna. And in my sauna, because light travels at the speed of light, it can't escape. And then with the R12 insulation, with the breathe safe, which increases background oxygen levels 70 to 118%, but it also cleans up your toxic humidified sauna sweat, and actually when you inhale that many negative ions per cubic centimeter, your sweat volume doubles. So it's like in my sauna system with having that healthy salt with the negative charge with the minerals with the 550 to 3400 nanometers of light, EZ water expands the best when you shine 3000 nanometers on it. So it's like you're going into the sauna and actually hydrating and creating hydroelectric energy besides the ATP from the mitochondria. So I do that, do a little dry brushing, movement, because actually movement in near infrared is special because it lowers your blood sugars, So, I mean, a lot of people have problems with insulin spiking, so that's going to help with that. Your flexibility, the nitric oxide, so dosing with that. And then doing a cold shower. I have a ozonator hooked up to my shower. So it's like ozonated cold water shower, and then I have the stand up coffee enema, no mess solution. So, while I'm taking this shower, I pump in the ozone. I not the ozone, but the coffee solution. And I'm, up the ascending and over the transverse massaging that. And then whenever I need to eliminate, I just go sit on the toilet and then come back in and then I fill again. So it's a double back to back. And so that's kind of like my morning. And then I throw in my hyperbaric oxygen chamber, and then I throw in my spinal fitness, and then some HIIT exercise with some weightlifting because, that's the thing when you're getting older, it's the muscle mass, and people don't realize that your organs are like muscles too. So if you're not building muscle, your organs are deteriorating too. So it's not just about having a six pack and all of that, but it's so much more for the wellness. So that's kind of like my day. So that's why I don't get into the office till the afternoon.
You have that's probably the best ritual I've heard anybody and clearly I need to up my game. Wow. You yeah, I thought I had some pretty good hacks in my day, but yours is way better. I'm going to have to start I'm going to steal some of your practices if you don't mind.
Oh yeah,
Um
yeah, definitely. I mean, hydrogen, I have a little hydrogen generator. So besides taking my breathe safe into my hyperbaric oxygen chamber, because hyperbaric strips negative ions from the air. So I get my negative ions, I get more oxygen besides my oxygen concentrator. But I have one of those where I breathe hydrogen gas too while I'm in there. So that's an antioxidant, and so yeah, it's like I gotta get I have a hydrogen water maker and I need to get that where I'm using it regularly. It's like my house is tore apart because we're repainting. And so after that gets done, then I'm going to move that on down to the kitchen. Because I used to, before my stand up coffee enema fix, I used to have a Kalima board and I'd lay down and then I had my hydrogen machine there and I had it where I inhaled hydrogen gas and I had my near infrared light shining down from the ceiling. So I was like triple stacking my hacks.
Awesome stuff.
Oh, well, I appreciate you having me, and we've got to meet up, and I got to get you a backtrack and go over some more of these workout routines.
I would love that. Yeah. Next time you're in Idaho, please, your house, mi casa, su casa, anytime. Seriously.
All right.